tea sippers. Happy Friday. It's the weekend, baby. It's the weekend, baby. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. So listen, we're gonna chime into, hey Janet, hey Cynthia. Crystal was in earlier, I think. Yeah. How y'all doing? Let me do this before it kick out. It's gonna kick out. We back. Oh man, what did it do? Dang it. We back. Can y'all hear me? They do crazy stuff nowadays. Still here. Okay, 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 okay. Awesome. So listen, we're gonna touch bases with the Trump stuff. Then I'm gonna chime into this conference. New evidence, new friend talking. I think I got the friend talking before the conference. Let me see if I can pull him up right quick. The friend he didn't want to say that it was a black and white thing, cause like he said, they all go to this predominantly white school, and they got white friends. But I'm gonna let y'all hear him first, and then I'm gonna chime into what Trump got going on, hiding, stealing, and illing. Who is this? And then we're going to go into the conference with Al Sharpton and there you go. and being Crump and the family. Is that all right? Hmm? Is that all right? Say what?
Javon, have you seen the video that's been going around in social media where
Let me
people
cut it
think
up.
that they're hearing an argument between people and they're wondering whether or not Nolan is one of the people in that argument? You
So he
just
clears
described
this up.
that you had.
Well, let's
Javon,
listen.
have you seen the video that's been going around in social media where people think that they're hearing an
TMZ.
argument between people and they're wondering whether or not Nolan is one of the people in that argument? You just described that you had another friend, not Nolan, another friend who was in and got into a dispute. Is that video the other argument that you were talking about?
Yes.
So, but is that Nolan in the video?
I can't tell. It's too far away. But
Is that Nolan in the video?
How do you not know your
I can't tell. It's
friend's
too far
best
away.
friend's voice?
But is that Nolan in the video?
I can't tell. It's too far away. But in that video,
How do you not know your
the
friend's
voices are
voice?
too clear, like way. But in that video, I feel like the voices are too.
So, but is that Nolan in the video?
I can't tell. It's too far away.
So is Charles saying
in that
no?
video,
So, but is that Nolan in the video?
I can't tell. It's too far away. But
So Charles is saying no. It's not him. Charles is saying no. Did I think it was him? I heard it the other day. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily thought it was him. And it looked like he was watching a confrontation. It didn't appear that he was involved. But let's keep going.
The other argument that you were talking about?
yes,
So, but is that Nolan in the video?
I can't tell. It's too far away. But in that video, I feel like the voices are too clear, like from the side. It's too clear for it to be that far away, for it to be Nolan arguing. And then also that altercation, it sounds just like my other friend that got into the altercation.
So it's more than one altercation.
And they were trying to, like, as he was in that altercation, I was calming him down. They were trying to get him out off the island. They were trying to get him back to land because he was just losing it. So
Describe that. That's kind of interesting. What was that about?
he was just very hostile. Like he was just like really like mad.
But why?
Like they were trying to, like, the parents on that boat were trying to get him out.
But why? But why? Somebody said something racial. Probably.
Describe that. That's kind of interesting. What was that about?
He was just very hostile. Like he was just like really like mad. Like they were trying to, like, the parents on that boat were trying to get him out.
I'm curious if the police have. I know they said they're still investigating. Did any investigators ever speak to you about what you saw that day?
No sir.
Really? Okay. Cops have not talked to you yet.
No sir.
That's odd.
I don't see why the cops would have. I don't see why the cops would have to talk to me. I mean, obviously,
The
like,
parents
you know,
are
like, I had
attorney and
said my
judges.
plea,
Yeah.
like,
And tied
whenever I had
to
talked to the people at Sunher,
Mega.
it was whenever, you know, the body was discovered, and the autopsy people and all those people were there.
Well, I'll tell you why I'm surprised. Because you knew Nolan well, and you knew that he was friends with these guys who were the last ones to be around him before his body was found. And I would think they would at least want to know, hey, just the things we're asking. Right. You know, did you ever hear of any of this stuff? It's odd to me. Just to gather information. Yeah, that the cops wouldn't have contacted you. Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, I'm completely fine with that. Like I said, I have nothing to hide. Like, that's my boy, and I want him to find justice. Like that. Like this whole case thing. Like whatever. Like this whole situation. And none of this adds up to me. So like, it's really hard. Like for like people to just like keep on saying things when like none of it adds up, honestly.
So one of the things that I'm sure, Javon, you've seen.
none of it adds up.
Of this story, people making
That's my boy, and I want him to find justice. Like,
hear of any of this stuff? It's odd to me. Just to gather information. Yeah, that the cops wouldn't have contacted you. Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, I'm completely fine with that. Like I said, I have nothing to hide. Like that's my boy, and I want him to find justice. Like that. Like this whole case thing. Like whatever. Like this whole situation, and none of this adds up to me. So like, it's really hard. Like for like people to just like keep on saying things when like none of it adds up, honestly.
So one of the things
None
that
of it makes
I'm sure,
sense.
Javon, you've seen has been a big part of this story. People making the point that, at least in the photos that we initially saw, that Nolan was the only African American kid who was out there, at least on that boat. Do you think, having been there on the island with this large group of people, that race plays a factor in whatever happens?
Now he finna get.
Again, I don't want to answer. I don't want to answer that question. I wouldn't say like. Yeah, I wouldn't want to answer that question. I mean, obviously, we go to
It's,
Springs.
that's
We're
just
gonna have white
like
friends.
Frisco
So like,
ISD.
that's. I mean, I guess it's pretty normal down here, but
Yeah, I mean, and I hear you. If that's, I
yeah,
guess you're saying
don't-
that it's normal, it's not out of place to be a black teen in that area and that you have white friends, right? That's
Yeah, like-
not uncommon,
yeah.
is what you're saying.
I'm sure every black person has white friends somewhere, you know. So I wouldn't say that it's a whole race thing, but it's just like obviously they're gonna paint it as that because none of this adds up.
Ooh, cause none of this adds up. Ooh. It don't add up, y'all. 1 + 1's not 2. Who spoke out? Hold on. I need to go ahead and jump in and get the Miss Totem president. I mean, ooh, baby, when I tell you he full of mess. So what you saying? So he won't sign. Let's listen.
You know, there's something
Housing.
happening right now that I think most Americans haven't fully absorbed yet. And I say that not to alarm you, but because sometimes the most important things that happen in Washington get lost in the noise. Today, July 10th, 2026, a housing bill that passed the United States Congress with some of the most overwhelming bipartisan margins I've seen in years is about to become law. 358 to 32 in the House, 85 to 5 in the Senate. Those aren't ordinary numbers. Those are numbers that tell you something real happened, that members of both parties actually sat down, worked through their differences, and produced legislation to help American families. And the President of the United States has announced he will not sign it. Now, the bill will still become law.
He won't make
tonight
America
at
better
midnight,
again.
because under the Constitution, if a president doesn't veto a bill within 10 days while Congress is in session, it takes effect automatically.
Beware of
So
your company. Too
technically,
many people are coming
families
up
will
on the
get this
line.
help.
Absolutely.
But let me tell you something. The way a law comes into being matters. The message it sends matters. And what just happened here deserves your full attention, because the implications go far beyond housing policy. Let me set the stage for you, because to understand why this moment is so significant, you've got to understand what American families are actually dealing with right now. Housing in this country has become a crisis, and I don't use that word lightly. Back in 2020, a family needed to earn about $66,000 a year to afford the payment on a median-priced home. Today, that number is over 120,000. We're talking about nearly doubling in just 6 years. The number of homes on the market that are affordable to families earning $75,000 or less has dropped 60% since 2019.
Yep.
60%. That means if you're a teacher, a firefighter, a nurse, a young couple starting out, the homes that used to be within your reach have largely vanished from the market. Nearly 40 million American households are spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs. Half of voters under 30 say housing is their number one financial concern, ahead of health care, ahead of education, ahead of food. This isn't a policy abstraction. This is the lived reality of tens of millions of people. And we'll come back to why that context matters so much in a moment, because it's the backdrop against which every decision I'm about to describe was made. So Congress, to its credit, actually did something about it. The 21st Century Road to Housing Act is a sweeping piece of legislation, more than 40 provisions that tackles the housing crisis from multiple angles. It removes regulatory barriers that slow down construction. It encourages local governments to reform restrictive zoning. It creates new pathways for manufactured and modular housing, which can save families $5,000 to $10,000 per home. It restricts large institutional investors. We're talking corporations that own 350 or more single-family homes from buying up the houses that regular families need. It expands veteran housing.
Listen, as you enter in, I don't care how many people in here, as you enter in ear hustle, hit the like button. I'm going to say it again. As you enter in an ear hustle, hit the like button. Do you know where the like button is? If you're on your phone, double tap your phone, the face of your phone. Or hit those three dots at the top right corner. Or you can leave. Yeah, get out.
Protections. It lifts the cap. It creates new pathways for manufactured and modular housing, which can save families $5,000 to $10,000 per home. It restricts large institutional investors. We're talking corporations that own 350 or more single-family homes from buying up the houses that regular families need. It expands veteran housing protections. It lifts the cap on the rental assistance demonstration program. It authorizes disaster recovery funding. Senator Tim Scott, a Republican from South Carolina, and Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, shepherded this through together. Chairman French Hill and Ranking Member Maxine Waters worked through the House version. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, went on social media after it passed and called it, and I'm paraphrasing closely here, one of the most significant pieces of housing affordability legislation in American history. The White House itself had scheduled a signing ceremony. This was supposed to be a moment of genuine accomplishment, something the administration could point to and say, we delivered for American families. And then President Trump pulled the plug. On June 24th, he abruptly canceled the signing ceremony. His condition? Congress had to first pass the Save America Act, a strict voter ID bill requiring documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote, photo ID at the polls, and restrictions on mail-in voting.
Blackmailing us.
Now, here's where I want to be fair, because I think that's important. There are people who sincerely believe in voter ID requirements, and I understand where that impulse comes from. Americans want their elections to be secure. They want confidence in the process. That's a legitimate value. But here's the honest truth about the situation. The Save America Act passed the House on a near party line vote, 218 to 213. It went to the Senate, where it needed 60 votes to overcome the filibuster. It couldn't get them. The Senate officially failed to advance it. Even Republican Senate leaders like John Thune acknowledged there weren't enough votes. Even members of Trump's own party, people like Senator John Curtis, Senator Lisa Murkowski, wouldn't go along with blowing up the filibuster to force it through. This wasn't Democrats obstructing some popular mandate. This was a bill that didn't have the votes. And in a democracy, that means something. So here's where it gets complicated. And this is the part that really troubles me as somebody who spent 8 years trying to make the machinery of government work. What the president did was take a historic housing bill, one that his own White House championed, one that had veto-proof bipartisan majorities, and he used it as leverage for something completely unrelated. He held the homes of millions of Americans hostage to a voter ID bill that had nothing to do with housing. Now look, I've been in rooms where deals get made. I understand negotiation. I understand leverage. When I was in office, we linked policy priorities together sometimes. That's the reality of governance. But there's a difference between legislative horse trading and what happened here. Legislative negotiation involves give and take between parties who are all at the table. What this was, and I think you have to call it what it is, was a president threatening to withhold his support for a bill that helps families keep a roof over their heads, not because of anything wrong with the bill, but to pressure his own party's senators into destroying a 200-year-old institutional safeguard, the legislative filibuster, for an entirely separate political objective. He called the housing bill a yawn. He called it so unimportant. Tell that to the young couple in Phoenix who can't afford their first home. Tell that to the veteran in South Carolina who's trying to access housing benefits. When the people who are supposed to lead start dismissing the struggles of the people they serve, something fundamental has broken in the relationship between the governed and those who govern. And this is where I want you to think about the institutional damage, because that's the piece that tends to get overlooked. When a president refuses to sign legislation that passed with overwhelming bipartisan support, not because of a policy objection to the bill itself, but as a protest over an unrelated matter, it sends a very specific message to every member of Congress. It says, your work doesn't matter unless it serves my agenda.
Right.
It says, bipartisanship is a waste of time unless I personally benefit from it. Think about what that does to the incentive structure. Republican senators and representatives spent months negotiating this bill in good faith with their Democratic colleagues. They compromised. They built coalitions. They did the hard, unglamorous work that democracy actually requires. And then their own president turned around and dismissed the result as irrelevant. Now I've got to ask you, what does that teach the next group of lawmakers who are thinking about reaching across the aisle? What does it teach the young staffers in those offices who believe they were doing something meaningful? We've got to remember that institutions don't break all at once. They erode. And every time a leader treats bipartisan accomplishment as disposable, it makes the next compromise a little harder to reach. Let me talk about where this leads us politically, because the implications for the midterm elections are real and they're important. We are 4 months away from the 2026 midterms. Republican members of Congress, especially those in swing districts in purple states, spent political capital on this housing bill, specifically because they knew housing affordability would be one of the defining issues of the election. They went home to their districts and told constituents, we're working on this, we're doing something. And now the president of their own party has denied them the victory lap. The bill becomes law anyway, yes, but it becomes law quietly. No Rose Garden ceremony, no presidential praise, no campaign ad featuring the signing. Instead, it becomes law in a way that's almost embarrassing. An automatic constitutional mechanism because the president couldn't be bothered. Meanwhile, Democrats get to make a very simple argument. We helped pass this bill, and the president tried to block it because he wanted to condition housing relief on a voter ID law that experts say could disenfranchise millions of Americans who lack easy access to passports or birth certificates. That's a powerful contrast in districts where people are struggling to afford a home. The irony here, and it is painful, is that this bill contained provisions the Trump administration specifically wanted, including restrictions on Wall Street investors buying up single-family homes. The White House actively pushed for those provisions, and now the president won't put his name on the finished product. So what happens next? Here's what I think, and I want to reason through this carefully. The bill becomes law tonight, which is the right outcome. Families will benefit, construction barriers will begin to come down, institutional investor restrictions will take effect. Those are real gains and they matter. But the political fallout is just beginning. I think you'll see Republican candidates in tough races trying to distance themselves from the president's handling of this, while simultaneously taking credit for the bill's passage, a very difficult needle to thread. I think you'll see the housing issue become even more central to the midterm debate, with Democrats framing it as an example of misplaced priorities. And I think the broader fight over the filibuster is far from over. Trump has made it clear he views the Senate's procedural rules as an obstacle, and the pressure on Republican senators will intensify. If the filibuster falls, and I pray it doesn't, the consequences would be felt for generations, because the same rule that's frustrating one party today protects the other party tomorrow. I saw that dynamic firsthand. But what concerns me most is the precedent. If a president can successfully condition routine governance on unrelated political demands,
He crazy.
if signing a housing bill becomes contingent on a voter suppression debate, then we have fundamentally changed what it means to pass legislation in America. And that brings me back to where I started. You know, I've always believed that the genius of this country isn't that we agree on everything. Lord knows we don't. The genius is that we have a system, imperfect, frustrating, slow as molasses sometimes, that forces people to work together, to compromise, to respect the process even when the outcome isn't exactly what you wanted. That system worked here. Congress did its job. Both parties came together and passed a bill that addresses one of the most painful problems facing American families, and it will become law. But the way it happened, with the president treating bipartisan achievement as a bargaining chip, dismissing the housing struggles of millions as a
Just
yawn,
crazy.
demanding the dismantling of Senate rules to advance a separate political agenda, that should give every American pause, regardless of which party you belong to. Because governance isn't just about outcomes. It's about the integrity of the process that produces those outcomes. And when that integrity is compromised, when leaders treat the basic functions of government as leverage games, the people who pay the price are always the ones who can least afford it. The families who just want a decent home at a price they can manage. We can do better than this. We always have, and I still believe we will. But it's going to take all of us paying attention, holding our leaders accountable, and insisting that the work of government serve the people, not the other way around.
You right about that? Hold on. Y'all come in, y'all walk out, but you don't hit the like button. What is that about? What is that about? Did I hear this yesterday?
You know, there are certain moments in the life of a country where what's said matters less than where it's said and why. Last night, on the eve of America's 250th birthday, President Trump stood beneath the granite faces of 4 presidents at Mount Rushmore
Oh, yeah, I heard
and
this.
delivered a speech that
Was self-serving. Hold on. Very much self-serving. He's a sick man. Let me see if I heard this one. He's a very sick man.
Hormuz. 3 ships. Now let me tell you something. I woke up this morning and the first thing I saw was that 3 commercial ships had been attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. 3 ships in less than 24 hours. One of them, a Qatari gas tanker called the Al Rekayat, was hit by a projectile near the coast of Oman and caught fire. A Saudi crude oil tanker, the Wedian, took a missile strike, and then a third vessel was hit Tuesday morning while the world was watching something else entirely, the funeral of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in Iran. Now, I want you to sit with that for a second, because the timing here is not a coincidence. It's a signal. And what that signal means for American interests, for global energy, for the fragile peace framework we just put together less than 3 weeks ago, that is what I want to walk through with you today, step by step. The
Let's
Blue
go.
Bill actually walked through the sequence of events this morning in a way that made the whole escalation timeline make sense. If you're not reading it, I'd say you probably should be. But let me take you through.
I need for you to see. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Why does that look like a beer bottle?
the bigger picture here, because most people are going to see the headline and miss what's. If you're not reading it, I'd say you probably should be. But let me take you through the bigger picture here, because most people are going to see the headline and miss what's actually happening underneath it. Let's go back to June 17th. That's when President Trump and Iranian President Pezeshkian signed what's called the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, a 14-point framework meant to end the war that started on February 28th, when the United States and Israel launched airstrikes against Iran. Now, I've been involved in negotiations like this. I've sat across from people who had every reason not to trust us, and we had every reason not to trust them. And the one thing I learned, and the one thing that makes these things work, is that the framework has to hold through the hard moments, not just the easy ones. Article 5 of that memorandum says Iran will allow safe passage of commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz with no charge for 60 days.
He messed all that up.
It commits to demining operations within 30 days. And it sets up a dialogue with Oman to define how that strait is going to be administered going forward. That's the deal. That's what both sides signed. And it matters because before the war, roughly 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas moved through that strait every single day.
Free of charge.
When the conflict broke out, traffic collapsed to almost nothing. At one point, as few as 2 tankers a day were getting through. So when I tell you that this memorandum was supposed to be the thing that brought stability back to global energy markets, I'm not exaggerating. It was the centerpiece. And what happened Monday night is that the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, essentially took that centerpiece and threw it on the floor. Now here's where the details matter, and I want to be precise about this. The IRGC had been warning ships for days that only their approved route through the strait was safe. They published a map back in April showing a lane that runs close to Iran's own coastline. Ships that tried to use a different route, one closer to Oman, which the Joint Maritime Information Center had actually widened just on June 27th to increase traffic flow, those ships were, in Iran's view, trespassing. The Al Rayqayyat, according to Iran's Fars news agency, was attacked after ignoring repeated warnings. Iran's state television implied responsibility, but stopped short of formally claiming it. The UK Maritime Trade Operations Center reported that the tanker was hit 8 nautical miles east of Lima, Oman, and that a fire broke out. Qatar's foreign ministry called it an unacceptable attack on international navigation and said they hold Iran fully legally responsible. And here's the part that makes this more than just a shipping dispute. This happened during Khamenei's funeral. Millions of mourners in Tehran and Qom chanting for revenge, calling for the death of President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. The funeral procession moved from Imam Hussein Square to Azadi Square, 10 kilometers of grief and fury. And while that was happening, the IRGC was firing missiles at commercial ships in international waters. You have to ask yourself, Was this a rogue military action, or was it a deliberate message sent at a moment of maximum emotional intensity? Now look, I want to be fair here. I understand the argument that some people will make in defense of what happened. They'll say Iran was clearing mines and these vessels entered a dangerous zone. They'll say the ships were warned and chose to take an unapproved route. One Tehran-based analyst told Al Jazeera that the Qatari tanker may have threatened mine-clearing teams operating near Oman's coast. And I'm willing to consider that there might be some operational reality behind those claims. But here's the honest truth. Even if every one of those explanations has some basis in fact, you don't fire missiles at commercial vessels belonging to your own regional neighbors during the middle of a peace process you just signed onto. That's not defense, that's leverage. Iran is trying to assert permanent control over the Strait of Hormuz, and they're using the funeral of their slain supreme leader as the emotional backdrop to do it. That's a strategic choice, and it's one that could unravel everything that's been built over the last 3 weeks. The memorandum was supposed to create space for diplomacy. What happened Monday night filled that space with smoke and fire, literally. And this is where things start to get complicated, because the institutional damage here goes in more than one direction. Yes, Iran violated the MOU. That's clear.
It's kind of partial sometimes.
But let me tell you what else is happening right now. President Trump arrived in Ankara today for the NATO summit. And the first thing he said was that he was very disappointed with the alliance. He told reporters he wouldn't have attended the summit at all if it weren't being hosted by Turkey. Now, I've worked with NATO. I expanded NATO. And I can tell you from experience that the way you build a coalition to respond to something like the Strait of Hormuz crisis is not by berating your allies the moment you walk through the door. The Blue Bill put two things side by side this week. Trump's public frustration with NATO over the strait and the European offer to deploy a maritime task force for demining and freedom of navigation. And the gap between those two realities is something most of the coverage has completely missed. I'd recommend reading it. But here's the part that concerns me. When the IRGC attacks ships in the strait, the response has to be coordinated, multilateral, and grounded in international law. You need the British Navy, the French Navy, the Gulf states, Oman, Qatar, everybody pulling in the same direction. What you can't have is the President of the United States telling his closest allies they're useless, while simultaneously trying to manage the most volatile maritime corridor on the planet. Let me tell you what I think is really going on beneath the surface here, because this is about more than ships and missiles. Inside Iran right now, you have a power struggle that most Americans aren't paying attention to. Mojtaba Khamenei, the new supreme leader, the son of the man they're burying this week, has not been seen in public since his father was killed on February 28th. Not once. No audio statement, no video, nothing. He was reportedly wounded in the same strike that killed his father. And he was appointed supreme leader in March. But the country has been governed essentially by committee, the IRGC, the parliament under Ghalibaf, President Pezeshkian, the foreign ministry. And those factions do not agree on how to handle the United States. Pezeshkian has been pushing for diplomacy. He said publicly that continuing the war is not in the interest of any individual or group, and he warned that internal rifts could destroy the country without any help from Israel or America. But the IRGC operates on a different logic. They see the Strait as their leverage, not just militarily, but economically. The Bluebill noted that at one point during the war, some ships were reportedly paying as much as $2 million per transit to the IRGC for safe passage. That's not a military operation. That's a toll booth backed by missiles. And the funeral has given the hardliners exactly the emotional cover they need to reassert that control. So where does this go? Let me walk you through what I think the next few weeks look like. And I want to be honest, none of the options are great. Option one, the United States retaliates militarily the way it has before. Earlier in the conflict, when Iran attacked ships, the U.S. struck coastal radars, drone storage facilities, missile bases. That could happen again. And if it does, Iran's foreign minister has already said Tehran will not resume negotiations if American threats continue. That's a direct path back to open conflict. And with the 60-day clock on the MOU already ticking, there is no time for another round of escalation. Option two, the diplomatic channel holds, barely. Pakistan and Qatar, who have been mediating since the beginning, step in, convince both sides to treat this as an aberration, and the technical talks resume after the funeral ends on July 9th. But that requires the United States to show restraint at a moment when the political incentive is to show force. And it requires Iran's civilian leadership to assert control over the IRGC, which Pezeshkian has struggled to do even under the best of circumstances. Option three, and this is the one that worries me the most, is drift. Nobody retaliates, nobody negotiates, the MOU expires without a final agreement, and the Strait becomes a permanently contested corridor where ships move at their own risk, insurance premiums stay astronomical, and 20% of the world's energy supply remains hostage to a power struggle inside Tehran that has no resolution in sight. That's not a war, but it's not peace either. And it's the kind of strategic ambiguity that punishes ordinary people, consumers, workers, families paying more at the gas pump, while the people making the decisions face no consequences at all. And that brings me to the thing I keep coming back to. Every time I look at a situation like this, diplomacy is not weakness. Coalition building is not weakness. Going to a NATO summit and telling your allies they matter, that their navies and their intelligence and their diplomatic relationships are part of how America leads, that is not weakness. It's how we won the Cold War. It's how we kept the peace in the Balkans. It's how we built the international order that made it possible for 20% of the world's energy to flow through a strait 34 kilometers wide without anybody getting shot at. What happened in the Strait of Hormuz this week is a test. It's a test of whether the framework we built can survive the hardest moment, which is always the moment right after someone violates it. And the answer to that test is not unilateral threats. It's not walking into a room full of your partners and telling them you're disappointed. The answer is the hard, patient, unglamorous work of holding people accountable through institutions, through international law, through alliances that function because everyone at the table believes they have a stake in the outcome. I have seen what happens when America leaves that way, and I have seen what happens when it doesn't. The Strait of Hormuz didn't become the most important waterway in the world by accident, and it won't stay open by accident either. It stays open because nations choose together to make it so. That's the choice in front of us right now. And I genuinely hope, that the people making it understand what's at stake, not just for the next 60 days, but for the next 60 years.
It's his fault that we're at odds. If he wouldn't have went in there trying to intimidate people, strong arm people, playing the people's face like he God Almighty, it wouldn't be the way it is. He the one that ucked up. Big time. He ucked up. He messed up. Yeah, and then he's still trying to go in there popping. Cause BB Netanyahu told him to. He told him to get in there. Get in there. And now he giving warning. He giving instructions on what to do if Iran take him out. Scary ass. Giving instruction. Can you believe that?
Under fire after Zoran Mamdani's International Affairs Commissioner reportedly made plans to meet with Iran's UN ambassador earlier this week.
Now he giving out
Could
instructions.
not have been worse. And the New York Post reporting this, the scheduled meeting would have unfolded after Iranian troops fired missiles at 2 commercial ships traversing the Strait of Hormuz.
Now
An
he needs to
action
give
Monday
instructions.
in direct defiance of an interim peace agreement between the U.S. and Iran. Mayor Mamdani
He
was asked
disappointed
about this
because he
at a
know
news
his life
conference
is
today.
on the
Watch.
line.
That meeting did not take place. It will not take place. And I did not know about it until there was a press inquiry regarding it. And when it comes to the work of our commissioner and our International Affairs Office, it...
Asked about this at a news conference today. Watch.
That meeting did not take place. It will not take place. And I did not know about it until there was a press inquiry regarding it. And when it comes to the work of our commissioner and our International Affairs Office, it's to
Y'all
ensure
hit the
that
like
as we are a
button.
city of the world, that we are also there to meet with leaders from across the world. The focus is always on our city and our relationship. The commissioner recognizes that this was made an error, and we're working on a new process in terms of new meeting requests.
A new process? What about competence? Well, this comes as the Wall Street Journal reports Israel warned the U.S. that Iran hatched a new plan to assassinate President Trump. Iran has repeatedly vowed to retaliate against our president for ordering the killing
Now he's
of President
scared.
Trump. Iran has repeatedly competence. Well, this comes as the Wall Street Journal reports Israel warned the U.S. that Iran hatched a new plan to assassinate President Trump. Iran has repeatedly vowed to retaliate against our president for ordering the killing of Iran's Revolutionary Guard General Qasem
I thought
Soleimani.
that's what they wanted.
President Trump reiterated that this week.
They've been in trouble for 47 years, and we took out their first set of leaders. We took out their second set of leaders. They want to take out the U.S. leader, me. I'm on every list. I saw things this morning. I'm on every single one of their lists. And so far, I guess I've been a little bit lucky, but that maybe doesn't last very long.
He know they
The
coming,
president
y'all.
told the Post today, quote, "I've left instructions, if anything happens, to just literally bomb them at levels that they've never seen before." Rebecca, it's so frightening to even
Can y'all
discuss
believe
this.
that?
I can't even wrap my brain around it. But let's go back to New York City for a second.
He know they coming.
If anything happens, to just literally bomb them at levels that they've never seen.
Been lucky, but That maybe doesn't last very long.
The president
He
told
know
the
they
Post
coming.
today, quote, "I've left instructions, if anything happens, to just literally bomb them at
They coming
levels
for
that
their
they've
bounty.
never seen before." Rebecca, it's so frightening to even discuss this, and I can't even wrap my brain around it. But let's go back to New York City for a second. You have to be a pretty special form of, I'd say, incompetence and blindness to have that happen under your watch.
Well, okay, except that according to the City Journal, who saw some internal messages from this commissioner to Mamdani's internal staff, that they were to take meetings with foreign leaders who, quote, are in political alignment / leftist. And so my question is,
Now it's
why
the
do they
leftist.
think that the Iranian
You took out that
regime
leader.
is in political alignment or leftist with them, when, yes, the Iran regime is firing on commercial shipping, they're also firing at Americans, at American warships, at Americans based overseas in Kuwait,
They've been
Bahrain,
doing
and
that.
Saudi Arabia. And so this is outrageous that this is something that the Mamdani administration was seeking to do. And also, of course, we know that New York has been really struggling with anti-Semitism, and this is something that's been really important to Mamdani. He has been fueling this anti-Semitism and has been very anti-Israel. So the whole thing is very concerning that the Mamdani administration would have any interest in meeting with an Iran official.
Yeah, Ari, walk
Trump
us through
meets
the
with him?
concerns that the White House would have too with your experience.
Involved in New York in the meeting?
Uh,
Well, first of all, I
Jared
totally
Kushner?
believe Mayor Mamdani. I'm certain that his commissioner for international affairs, he was going to meet with the Iranians to help them find the best bagels in New York City. I am certain this is going to be a friendly, come
Right.
to New York, we love you meeting. That's what it was about. I mean, I just can't imagine Zoran Mamdani wanting to have a meeting with people who say death to America, death to Israel, for any other reason than to be nice.
They said death to
I mean,
Trump.
What you just said is exactly right, Rebecca. This was politics. This
He
is
didn't
what they
say
believe
death
in.
to
This is
America.
who
He
they
said
seek
they said
out
death to
have
Trump.
a sympathetic view and sympathetic ear. Politics. This is what they believe in. This is who they seek out to have a sympathetic view and sympathetic ear with. This is frightening. This
See
is
how they
not
switched
what
that
New
up?
York should be doing, and then the mayor lies and covers up. He sounds like Graham Plattner denying the reality that's right in front of him, and which is why his staff feels they're licensed to go out and meet with the Iranians and talk to the Iranians. I wish the meeting took place, and that way we could have demanded to know what they talked about and hold the mayor to account for it. It really is too bad that they stopped it before it happened, because that is what really motivates these people.
There really
Trump
seems to
shoulda
be this
stopped.
sort of like weaseling that happens here, Lisa, where the mayor gets away with things by smiling and denying. And, you know, remember it took them, what, three times to get a paycheck out to NYPD officers, and it's always, oh, I'm sorry, there was an error. Like, it seems really mealy-mouthed here, but at the end of the day, it's New Yorkers whose safety is being compromised, let alone our nation's
They be
security
lying.
that's being compromised if this were to happen.
I mean, I can't.
This
blame
wouldn't have
anyone
happened if Trump
asking
wouldn't have
whose
started this
side
war
is
for
he
Bibi
on
Netanyahu.
in all of this, right? And you would think, wouldn't you know if your international affairs commissioner is trying to meet with Iranian officials? Is that something that you should know as mayor? And why would that individual be trying to meet with Iranian officials? But you go down the list. You also look at some of the tweets and the various things that his wife has liked.
They shouldn't have started the war for Israel.
October 7th as well starts to paint a little bit of a picture. But even going back to the Biden administration, and Rebecca's going to know about this. You've got Robert Malley, who was the envoy for Iran for the Biden administration. He had his security clearance revoked from him, also was under FBI investigation. You had another top official who is part of the Iran Experts Initiative, which Semaphore had reported about government leaked emails where Iranian officials and government officials were coordinating.
Why is
with
Jared
individuals in the
Kushner over
United
there?
States that were part of this initiative to try to shape public opinion here in the United States.
he's not even a
and the
part of
West
the
more
administration.
favorably for the Iranian regime. So whose side are some of these people on? It certainly doesn't seem to be America.
Because y'all not for
Just pointing
America.
out, and you pointed this out too, Mamdani says, I wasn't informed about this meeting, and apparently she has been reprimanded. But my question is, you should know what your staff is doing. If someone on your staff takes a meeting with Iran and the mayor doesn't know, it seems like you have a lot of other problems. I thought the same as you when I saw the internal document about cozying up to leftist regimes. We've actually seen that from Mamdani. He tried to meet with the Colombian president, Petro. The State Department intervened. That didn't happen.
Why is
Petro was
Jared
at a rally with
Kushner?
him at one point in September. So he does cozy up to the left. But what's interesting is the diplomatic mission that this woman was a part of says that they want an equitable and inclusive society. And when you think about Iran, it is not that. And I think about 22-year-old Masa Amini, who I bring up repeatedly on this show, who was arrested by the morality police, beaten, and then in Iranian custody was killed. And she is one woman of many. Tens of thousands of Iranian citizens have lost their lives. So if you want to be equitable and inclusive, you're doing the exact opposite by taking a meeting with Iran. You should know better. We are the freest country in the world, the best country in the world.
Haven't been since Trump got in office.
Kills young Muslim women, people you purportedly say you care about.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube.
See, that's why I don't deal with hypocrites.
Streaming now on Fox 1.
I hear my mama saying they make the rules, they break the rules. And they the biggest crooks of them all. Now let's get to this press conference. Since y'all not hitting the like button, let me hurry up and get up out of here. Cash potato. Okay, hold on. We done heard the little boy with his friend. Oh, what was this one? What was offered? Hold on.
90 minutes on the phone. On July 4th, America's 250th birthday, Donald Trump picked up the phone with Vladimir Putin, and for an hour and a half, while the fireworks were still being set up over the National Mall, the two men talked about how to end the largest land war in Europe since 1945. Here's the sentence that should stop you. The Kremlin says Trump offered to help find a solution to the Ukraine war, not discussed, not reviewed, offered. And within 24 hours, Trump was standing next to Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara in front of cameras saying, I think they both want to make a deal. Something's going to come out. So what exactly was offered?
Right.
What did Putin say back? And why did this call happen at the exact moment American leaders were boarding planes for the most consequential NATO summit in years? Today we go through this call minute by minute, offer by offer.
Again,
and then we put
behind
it
the
next to the
scenes deal.
summit unfolding in Ankara right now, because these two events are not separate stories. They are the same story, told from two different rooms.
Oh, wow.
The call itself. Let's establish exactly what happened, because the details matter more than the headline. Saturday, July 4th evening, Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov briefed reporters early Sunday on what took place. This was the fourth call between Trump and Putin this year. Fourth, not the first outreach, not a cold restart. This is a relationship with a track record, a rhythm, a history of Trump picking up this particular phone. Ushakov's own words for the tone, businesslike, and his word, quite constructive. Notice the discipline in that phrase.
He's selling us out
not
again.
Not warm, not friendly, businesslike. That is the language great powers use when they want you to know a transaction happened, not a friendship. Here's how the call opened. Putin, according to the Kremlin, personally congratulated Trump and the entire American people on the 250th anniversary of independence, and in the same breath, according to Ushakov, recalled what he called Russia's contribution to the formation of American statehood. Read that twice. Putin is reminding Trump on Trump's own birthday that Imperial Russia was one of the few European powers not hostile to the American colonies in 1776. That is not small talk. That is a Russian leader inserting his country into America's founding myth on the one day of the year Americans are most sentimental about it. It is flattery with a hook in it. Then the business began, and the business, unmistakably, was Ukraine. Before we go further, understand the pattern this call fits into. This is the fourth Trump-Putin call this year, which means we are well past the phase where a single conversation counts as a breakthrough. The two men have a working channel now, a relationship with its own rhythm, its own vocabulary, its own rituals. That matters because it changes how you should read everything that follows. A first call between adversarial leaders is a probe, feeling out red lines, testing tone. A fourth call is something else entirely. It's two men who already know exactly what the other wants, going through a familiar routine, each trying to extract one more inch before the next round. Nothing said in this call was a surprise to either side. The surprise, if there was one, is only in what each man chose to say publicly about it afterward, and that is where the real signal lives. Remember, too, that this call did not happen in isolation. It came against the backdrop of an August 2025 summit in Anchorage, Alaska. Trump and Putin standing together at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, talks that Russian state media itself later admitted ended earlier than expected and without the landmark peace deal Trump had been hoping for. One Russian television host, reflecting on that failed summit, put it with unusual bluntness: Russia decided to saw through the Western world itself rather than let it be sawed into pieces by others. That is the emotional backdrop Putin brought to this July 4th call. A leader who has already watched one high-profile in-person summit with this president fail to produce the deal Washington wanted, and who now knows exactly how much rope a phone call gives him compared to a summit stage. What Putin offered. Start with Moscow's side of the table, because Putin came to this call with leverage he intended to use, and he used it in the oldest way there is. He described the battlefield. Ushakov says Putin depicted the real situation on the battlefield, where, in Putin's own characterization, Russian armed forces are, quote, confidently advancing, liberating one locality after another. The specific proof point Russian commanders had handed Putin just one day earlier, the capture of Kostiantynivka, a strategically important city in Donetsk, in eastern Ukraine's contested Donbas region. Now here is where you need to slow down and read the fine print, because this is where propaganda and fact split apart in real time. Ukraine's own general staff and President Zelensky personally dismissed that claim the very next day, Saturday, saying Kiev's forces still controlled the city. Independent battlefield trackers were blunter. The Institute for the Study of War, a Washington think tank that has tracked this conflict line by line for years, called Putin's and the Russian military command's claims of sweeping advances part of what it termed a deliberate narrative, one built to make a Russian victory look inevitable and Ukrainian lines look collapsed, regardless of what is actually happening on the ground. On-the-ground reporting says something closer to this. Small groups of Russian soldiers infiltrated Kostiantynivka, and Ukrainian counter-sabotage units were still actively working to clear them out as this call was happening. So what was Putin actually offering Trump? Not a battlefield map. A story about a battlefield map, a story engineered to convince Washington that Russia is winning, that time favors Moscow, and that the price of a deal today is lower than the price of a deal in 6 months. That is the oldest negotiating tactic in the book. Convince the other side that delay costs them more than it cost you. And underneath the battlefield story sat Russia's actual structural offer, the one Moscow has repeated in some form for over a year now, what Ushakov called a political diplomatic resolution with due account of Russia's fundamental approach. Translate that out of diplomat speak and it means exactly one thing. Russia's fundamental approach has been consistent since this war entered its current phase. Moscow assuming full control over the entirety of Ukraine's Donbas region, all of it, including the parts Ukraine still holds and is still bleeding to defend. That is Putin's offer, not compromise on Donbas, recognition of it. Ukraine rejects that outright and has for the length of this war. So when the headline says Putin came to the table with an offer, understand what that offer actually was. The same territorial demand Kyiv has refused for years, wrapped this time in a friendlier phone call and a flattering Independence Day greeting. And this demand is not new rhetoric dusted off for the occasion. It is the single fixed point in Russian diplomacy across this entire war. Through the Alaska summit, through 3 prior...
Hey, y'all. Guess what I need for y'all to do? I'm an hour and 10 minutes in. I need for y'all to double tap the face of your phone if that's how you're listening in, or hit those three dots at the top right corner. And I will wait. Or y'all can leave. Okay, go.
Calls with Trump through every round of indirect, not compromise on Donbass, recognition of it. Ukraine rejects that outright and has for the length of this war. So when the headline says Putin came to the table with an offer, understand what that offer actually was. The same territorial demand Kyiv has refused for years, wrapped this time in a friendlier phone call and a flattering Independence Day greeting. And this demand is not new rhetoric dusted off for the occasion. It is the single fixed point in Russian diplomacy across this entire war. Through the Alaska summit, through 3 prior calls with Trump, through every round of indirect negotiation, Moscow's position on the Donbass has not moved a millimeter. What has moved is only the packaging, sometimes framed as a ceasefire precondition, sometimes as a final settlement term, sometimes, as on this call, folded into vague language about a political diplomatic resolution. Zelensky, for his part, tried last month to force the issue directly, requesting a one-on-one meeting with Putin himself, face-to-face, leader to leader. Putin refused. Read that refusal correctly. A leader confident enough in his phone call diplomacy with Washington has no incentive to sit across a table from the one person who could publicly contest his battlefield narrative in real time, with no American intermediary translating the story for him. Putin will talk to Trump about Ukraine all day. He will not talk to Ukraine about Ukraine. The battlefield itself, meanwhile, tells a messier story than either capital's press office wants you to hear. This war now runs along roughly a 1,200-kilometer front line, Zelensky's own figure, given in his readout of his call with Trump. A front so long that who controls which town changes week to week in ways neither government can fully verify in real time, let alone spin honestly for a foreign audience. That length, that fog, is precisely the terrain in which a claim like, "We liberated Kostiantynivka," can live for 48 hours as a talking point before independent trackers catch up and correct it. One more detail from Putin's side worth sitting with. Ushakov added that Putin expressed hope that U.S. diplomatic efforts in a completely separate conflict, the Iran war, would, quote,
So he over there
allow for
acting a
mutually
fool,
acceptable long-term
getting us in
solutions
more
to be
mess.
found on key issues of a settlement there too. Putin is explicitly linking 2 wars in one phone call. Why would he do that? Because Russia has spent 4 months building diplomatic capital as Iran's defender, condemning Khamenei's killing, quarterbacking the UN response, sending its own envoy to the funeral this week. Putin is telling Trump, in the same 90 minutes, I have leverage in the Gulf too, and I am prepared to be useful there as well, for a price. Everything Putin does right now, on every file, is being offered as a package. And finally, the small gesture that is never actually small. Ushakov says Putin reminded Trump that he has a standing invitation to visit Moscow. That invitation has been sitting on the table for a while now. Repeating it, on this call, on this day, is Putin signaling that the relationship is durable enough to survive disagreement, warm enough to imagine a summit, and, not incidentally, flattering enough to keep an American president who prizes being personally courted. Personally courted. What Trump offered back. You know, there's something happening right now side of the table because Trump did not sit on this call passively. He offered something concrete back, and then said something even more revealing 48 hours later, in public, standing next to a NATO ally. According to the Kremlin's own readout, Trump reaffirmed his readiness to facilitate the earliest possible cessation of hostilities and to help find solutions to what Ushakov called the crisis. Reaffirmed, meaning this is not new. This is Trump doubling down on a posture he has held for months. America as convener, America as deal maker, America bringing two exhausted sides to a table it built. And Trump backed that offer with logistics. Ushakov quoted Trump directly, saying that Washington's envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, would keep trying to broker a settlement and were prepared to make another visit to Moscow at a convenient time. That is not a rhetorical offer. That is a functioning diplomatic channel, named, staffed, and ready to fly. Then, less than 48 hours later, Trump said the quiet part in front of the world's cameras. Standing beside Erdogan in Ankara, opening the NATO summit, Trump told reporters he'd had a very good talk with Putin and that he'd also spoken with Zelensky. His exact words, "I think they both want to make a deal. It's too bad it took so long, but I think something's going to come out."
Always a lie.
When a reporter pressed him, had anything actually changed? Was Putin open to real concessions? Trump's answer was one word: never changed. Sit with that answer for a second, because it is the single most important line in this entire story. A reporter asks the head of state, "Is there new movement here, or are we watching the same positions repackaged as momentum?"
Yeah.
And the American president's own answer is, nothing has changed.
Nothing has
He
changed.
said it himself on camera at the exact moment he was also expressing optimism that a deal was close. Both of those statements came out of his mouth within the same 30 seconds. That is not a contradiction by accident. That is Trump doing what he has always done in negotiations, project confidence publicly while conceding privately in the same breath that the fundamentals haven't moved an inch. It's also worth noticing what Trump did not say. He did not describe a single new Russian concession. He did not name a date, a location, or a mechanism for the next round of substantive talks, only that Witkoff and Kushner remain prepared to visit Moscow at a convenient time. Language elastic enough to mean next week or next season. Compare that vagueness to the specificity Putin brought to the call: a named city, a named region, a named military claim. One side arrived with a story and a demand. The other arrived with an open-ended promise to keep talking. That asymmetry is the whole call in miniature. And there's a domestic angle to Trump's optimism that's easy to miss if you're only watching the Russia file. Trump arrived at this NATO summit already at odds with several of his own allies, publicly calling Germany's defense spending ridiculous within a day of landing, floating a desire to control Greenland, even while admitting it would hurt his relationship with the alliance, and needling Italy's prime minister in a social media post just days before praising her in person as a nice person. Against that backdrop of visible friction with NATO, a very good talk with Putin serves a second, quieter purpose. It lets Trump present himself in the same appearance as both the ally holding Europe's feet to the fire on spending and the indispensable deal-maker making progress where European governments have made none in over a year. The Putin call is doing double duty, foreign policy talking point and domestic and alliance management talking point, delivered in a single answer to a single reporter's question. So what did Trump actually offer Putin on that call? Continuity. The envoys stay active. The door to Moscow stays open. The rhetoric of almost there stays turned up. But no new pressure, no new deadline, no new leverage was described by either side. Compare that to what Putin offered, a manufactured battlefield narrative designed to extract concessions on Donbass, plus a request for American help on Iran. One side offered a process. The other side offered a story and a price tag. Read the transcript honestly, and Trump gave more than he got. The Ankara backdrop. Here is why the timing of this call is not a coincidence, and why you need to understand the room Trump walked into 2 days later. 32 NATO heads of state converged on Ankara for the summit running July 7th and 8th, the second time Turkey has hosted this gathering, the first being Istanbul back in 2004. 2 non-member leaders were invited to the table as guests, Ukraine's Zelensky and South Korea's Lee Jae-myung. And notably, watch who else showed up on the sidelines. Gulf states directly affected by the Iran war, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar sent ministers. Japan, Australia, New Zealand sent officials too. This was not a Ukraine-only summit. It was a summit where every crisis Washington is juggling this year showed up in the same building at once. The declared agenda, defense spending, and continued support for Ukraine's military needs. But the subtext, which every reporter in that room understood, was Trump's relationship with the alliance itself. He arrived having spent the run-up to the summit publicly needling allies, calling Germany's defense spending ridiculous within a day of landing, even as Chancellor Merz defended it as the largest defense effort in his country's modern history. He arrived having said weeks earlier that when European nations declined to join the war on Iran, he didn't want their money, he wanted, in his words, their loyalty. He even acknowledged publicly that he might not have attended this summit at all if it weren't being hosted by Erdogan personally, a compliment to one leader that was simultaneously an insult to the other 31. And into that tension, Trump dropped the Putin call as a talking point, proof he wanted allies to believe that his outreach to Moscow is producing results, right as those same allies are being asked to write billions of dollars in new defense contracts, specifically because Washington's commitment feels less certain than it used to. Some analysts watching the summit describe those new European contracts bluntly as attempts to appease an American president whose loyalty now has to be earned, deal by deal, rather than assumed. There was a third subplot running through the same building, and it's worth a beat because it shows how crowded this moment actually is. While Trump was talking up his call with Putin, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was giving a separate interview warning that America's plan to sell its most advanced fighter jets to Turkey, Erdogan's own hosting nation, doesn't make Turkey a friendly state to the United States, describing Ankara as a government he said was, in his words, infected with an ideology that hates America. That is a sitting allied prime minister publicly trashing the summit's host. In the same 48-hour window, Trump is praising that host and floating optimism about Russia. Every one of Washington's current relationships, with Moscow, with Kyiv, with Ankara, with Jerusalem, was colliding in the same room on the same week, and the Putin call was only the loudest of several signals being sent simultaneously. So consider the sequence in order. Putin calls, offers a manufactured battlefield story and a vague diplomatic olive branch. Trump reaffirms the envoys, keeps the door to Moscow open, says nothing has changed, and then 48 hours later uses a very good talk with Putin as a credibility marker in front of an election.
I need for y'all to hit the like button. There's 78 people in here right now, and the likes are in the teens. I'm going to shut it down if y'all don't hit the like button. Hit the like button now, please. There's 3 dots at the top right corner. I know you know where it's at, so get to stepping and hit the like button. Yeah, every last one of y'all can leave if you can't hit the like button. I don't care. Get your ass on up out of here. But if you're going to be in here ear hustling, then you're going to hit the like button or get the fuck out. Oh my God, she said the F word. Exactly. I know what to say to get you up out of here. Get up. Get your ass on up out of here. Go on over there. Where they going to feed your lies. Yeah,
with
down
Ankara,
go.
with Jerusalem, was colliding in the same room on the same week, and there's a third subplot running through the same building, and it's worth a beat because it shows how crowded this moment actually is. While Trump was talking up his call with Putin, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was giving a separate interview
Yeah.
that America's plan to sell its most advanced
I like
fighter
it just
jets
like
to Turkey, Erdogan's own hosting nation, doesn't make Turkey a friendly state to the United States, describing Ankara as a government he said was, in his words, infected with an ideology that hates America. That is a sitting allied prime minister publicly trashing the summit's host. In the same 48-hour window, Trump is praising that host and floating optimism about Russia. Every one of Washington's current relationships, with Moscow, with Kyiv, with Ankara, with Jerusalem, was colliding in the same room on the same week, and the Putin call was only the loudest of several signals being sent simultaneously. So consider the sequence in order. Putin calls, offers a manufactured battlefield story and a vague diplomatic olive branch. Trump reaffirms the envoys, keeps the door to Moscow open, says nothing has changed, and then 48 hours later uses a very good talk with Putin as a credibility marker in front of an alliance he's simultaneously threatening to pull back from. The call didn't happen despite the summit. The call happened for the summit. It was a chip Trump carried into Ankara in his pocket to be played the moment reporters asked whether his outreach to Russia was actually delivering anything, what this actually means. So strip away the diplomatic language and the flattering birthday telegram, and here is the ledger, plainly stated. Putin got a fresh public reaffirmation that the sitting American president still wants a deal on Moscow's terms rather than Kiev's, delivered on a day designed for maximum American sentimentality. He got to plant a battlefield narrative, Kostiantynivka liberated, directly into the ear of the man who will eventually have to sell any settlement to the American public, regardless of whether Ukrainian forces still control the ground. He got an open invitation reaffirmed, a Moscow visit dangled, and Iran linked into the same package as Ukraine, expanding his leverage across two theaters in one conversation. And he got all of it without moving 1 inch off the position he has held for over a year. Donbass in full or no deal. Trump got a headline. Very good talk. Something's going to come out. A talking point to carry into a summit where his own alliance management was under scrutiny, allowing him to look like the indispensable deal maker on the two conflicts defining his foreign policy, Ukraine and Iran, simultaneously, at the exact moment he needed that image most. Zelensky got a phone call of his own, described as very good, and a promise to continue the conversation at the summit. Plus, by his own account, nothing structural. He said there was a real prospect to end the war and that American resolve would be decisive. That is the language of a leader trying to project confidence in an ally whose commitment he cannot fully control, using almost exactly the same rhetorical move Trump himself was using an ocean away. Notice too what Zelensky did not get and could not get from a call he wasn't even party to, any say in how his own country's Donbass was being described to the American president as already confidently falling. Ukraine's leader is negotiating the shape of his own country's borders through a channel where the two men actually discussing the terms are not Ukrainian. And there's a fourth party in this ledger who rarely gets named, NATO itself. The alliance got a president who used a call with its principal adversary as leverage inside its own summit. A president who, in the same set of public remarks, reiterated wanting Greenland, called an ally's defense budget ridiculous, and declined to rule out further American troop withdrawals from Europe when asked directly, saying only, "We're going to see." That is an alliance being told simultaneously that Washington might scale back its own presence on the continent while also being the indispensable broker of peace on the continent's eastern edge. Those two postures sit in real tension, and NATO's 32 members spent this summit trying to plan around both of them at once. And Ukraine on the ground got this. While Putin was describing confident advances to an American president, Ukrainian drones were striking deep inside Russia, an oil terminal in St. Petersburg among the targets, which Zelensky described as a facility that, in his words, generates revenue for Russia's war. Over the preceding month, Ukrainian forces hit 8 separate Russian oil refineries, destroying or critically damaging more than 60 storage tanks, along with fuel and power infrastructure in occupied Crimea. That is the real battlefield context sitting underneath the phone call, not a Russian army rolling unopposed through the Donbas, but a mutual campaign of attrition where both sides are hitting the other's ability to sustain the fight, and neither side's public narrative fully matches what independent trackers are seeing on the ground. That is the actual shape of what was offered. Not a peace plan, a set of signals, each one calibrated for a different audience. Putin's signal aimed at Trump's ear and Ukraine's morale. Trump's signal aimed at NATO's confidence in him. Zelensky's signal aimed at keeping his own public believing the alliance still holds, and NATO's own contradiction sitting quietly underneath all three, still unresolved. Here's the honest read, and it is the same read Trump himself gave you, if you listen carefully to what he actually said rather than how he said it. He was asked directly whether anything had changed. He answered, "Never changed. That is not spin. For once it might be the single most accurate sentence spoken all week. 90 minutes on the phone, a fourth call this year, a battlefield story about a city Ukraine says it still holds, an open invitation to Moscow, envoys on standby to fly back, and, by the American president's own admission, standing next to a NATO ally 2 days later, the fundamentals of this war have not moved. What did move is the theater around it. A call on America's most sentimental holiday, a flattering nod to 1776, a headline landing 48 hours before the most consequential NATO gathering in years, in a summit room already crowded with every unresolved crisis of this year: Ukraine, Iran, alliance cohesion, defense spending, Turkey's own quarrel with Israel over fighter jets sitting one floor down from the main stage. Watch 3 things from here. Watch whether Witkoff and Kushner actually board a plane to Moscow, and how soon. That is the difference between a phone call and a process. Watch whether Kostiantynivka's status gets independently confirmed one way or the other in the coming days, because whichever side is lying about that city is lying about the whole narrative. And watch what, if anything, gets announced out of Trump's bilateral meeting with Zelensky at this summit. Because that meeting, not the phone call, is where you'll find out whether something's going to come out was a promise or a placeholder. 90 minutes bought a headline. It did not buy Donbas, and it did not buy peace. The gap between those two things is the only story here that matters. There's a pattern worth naming before we close, because it isn't new, and it won't be the last time you see it. Great power phone diplomacy has a long history of producing exactly this shape of outcome: warm words, reaffirmed channels, optimistic sound bites, and zero movement on the actual sticking point. Nixon and Brezhnev did it for a decade over arms control. Reagan and Gorbachev needed 4 summits before Reykjavik actually cracked something open. The lesson isn't that this call failed. The lesson is that a single call was never going to succeed, and the coverage treating 90 minutes as a milestone in itself is mistaking the ritual for the result.
Can I get you to hit the like button for me, please?
What actually moves wars isn't the length of a phone call. It's whether the side with less battlefield leverage runs out of options before the side with more leverage runs out of patience. And right now, by every account on the ground, neither side has run out of either. If this breakdown helped you see past the very good talk headline to what was actually on the table, subscribe and hit the bell. The NATO summit runs through July 8th. The Trump-Zelensky meeting is imminent, and we'll break down exactly what comes out of it the moment it happens. Tell me in the comments, is this the start of a real deal or the fifth act of a play that's been running for a year?
A play that's been running for a year. A play. A whole play. It's for play. Okay, so let me get over here and listen to this press conference. I wanted everybody else to get what they got to say about it, what they think, how they feel on out the way before I listen and try to break this down, Byron.
Going to an island. We're outing with his friends. And the friends come back, being that Ben Crump and attorney Park, you'll hear from. I want to let me say at the outset that when I received the word of what happened to Nolan and began hearing what was pieced together, it is clear that this situation must have the most thorough and objective investigation to lead to justice. What we've been told does not make sense. And being that there is lack of confidence in the local authorities, who have already, in my judgment, seemed to have mishandled where it was going. Because to just immediately, before a week time, saying there was nothing done wrong, when we hear that this young man was engaged in some kind of argument that was on tape, that his cell phone and
argument on tape
ended up with one of the people that were there on the island and got away. He was one black with three young white men who happened to end up with his phone, happened to end up with his keys. Then there's just too many questions that they should not be closing the investigation. Now, I'm from Brooklyn, so I'm a little different than some of y'all. I was built different. My nose is out here, my eyes are here, my brain is here, which means some things I can smell before I could see and before I can figure out. This does not smell right. So some people are saying, Reverend, are y'all bringing in race? Well, we're not bringing in race, but we're not discounting race either, because we don't know what it is. So to tell us don't rush to judgment saying it was racist, it's fine. But then I'm telling you, don't rush to judgment saying it was not racist.
Absolutely.
Because we do not know. We do know what these parents are being told, and what the parents have now shared with us does not make sense. How do you end up a young, promising football player, not in trouble, mother and daddy at home, everything we tell them to do and be? They go on the 4th of July, on the anniversary of this country, going to an island. We're outing with his friends. And the friends come back, and he's left there with some story about, he said, leave them behind. But then by some magic, one of the friends has his keys and his phone. Mind you, his mother tracked down the phone. They didn't voluntarily tell her they had his phone. They didn't voluntarily say they had the keys. So if they had not been tracked down, we don't know if they ever would have known where it was. Some of this doesn't make sense. So we are absolutely in National Action Network and other groups going to rally behind this family. I have told them that whatever we can and we need to do, we will do it because this smacks of some of the worst fears that we've had historically, not only in Mississippi, but in this country.
Are y'all still listening in?
And we are there until the end with them. I've been asked by the family to be in Mississippi for the funeral to officiate, which I'm going to do. We just got off the phone with Tyler Perry, the actor who says he wants to help cover whatever expenses for the funeral. We have with us Spike Lee is in the house. Many of our people that have always supported families.
Oh, a movie coming, y'all.
This is not about them trying to raise money. We're going to take care of that. This is about, though, they got to keep going forward. But we want justice. And let the chips fall where they may. If it ends up being one way that we suspect was wrong, fine. But if it's another way, don't back up and play games with this. They are not activists or lawyers. So they only want justice for their son. I'm an activist. When we get there and they say we heating things up, that's what we do. Because sometimes you got to make people sweat to get the poison out their system.
Absolutely.
I'm the sweat man. And they are the parents that want to see justice for their son. Let me let you hear from Christine and Elmer Wansley and then Attorney Crump. Let them. Okay, Attorney Crump, and then we'll hear from the parent.
Okay. Thanks, man. Y'all can come on up before we'll all be together. Thank you, Reverend Al, for always answering the bell, as you have done on so many occasions when families get the worst news of their life. And make no mistake about it, Christine and Elmo got the worst news of their life on what was supposed to be a joyous occasion where everybody was celebrating the 4th of July weekend. I'm Attorney Ben Crump, along with Attorney Lisa Park and Jared Presson and Camila Moore. We have the honor and the privilege of helping to lead an independent investigation on behalf of the family of Nolan Wells. Why do you say we need to be retained to lead an independent investigation? It is because the family has distrust of the Mississippi law enforcement officials giving them a fair investigation where their black son ended up dead after going out on a boat with 3 young white men. The history of Mississippi is something that they don't just read about in books, but it's a lived experience for many black Americans that oftentimes when our children are killed in highly questionable situations, that there is this notion that, oh, it was nothing wrong, no foul play, let's just sweep it under the rug. Well, we refuse to sweep it under the rug. We refuse to just let Nolan Wells' death be in vain. We're going to make sure that we get to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because Nolan deserves it. You're going to hear his mother and father talk about what a wonderful young man he was. I mean, doing everything right. Reverend Al, he was not only a college student, he was a great athlete. He was a model big brother for his brothers and little brothers and sisters, and he was a great son who was on the cusp of becoming a man. I mean, Christina Elmore did everything to prepare him for this moment. He was so close. He was right there. You're going to hear his father talk about him had a good football season last year, but this season he was really ready to go to the next level, to go to Division I. I mean, the highlights that you're seeing on social media of his athletic prowess, I mean, it is all relevant, because when you start talking about drowning, I mean, this is a kid who knew how to swim. This is a kid who was in tip-top shape. He was a superior athlete. And so I'm going to get to that in a moment, these glaring contradictions, but to try to say, oh, we're suggesting it was just an accident or drowning, go ahead and move on. Well, they are not accepting it. They are not accepting it. They want to know that you have not taken the path of least resistance, that you have done a full, complete, thorough, impartial investigation, because it cannot be lost on anybody, but especially us in the black community. If the roles were reversed and you had 3 young black men on a boat with a young white man, and that young white man ended up dead, what kind of investigation would be being conducted by the Mississippi law enforcement officials? How many times would those 3 young black men be interrogated? So all we're asking is the same consideration you would have given if the roles were reversed. Give that consideration to this family as well. That is our fight. The glaring contradictions just jump out at you. The fact that he is there with his friends, and you look at all the videos, it seems to be he's the only black on the island, or maybe one other, but not many. And so, Jared, you have where a young woman he was talking to says that, well, Nolan said he was going back to get on the boat with the boys. The boys say that Nolan told them he was going to stay and talk to the young woman. It's a contradiction. They're not saying the same thing. One of them is telling the truth, one of them is not. We have to get to the bottom of that. It's important. And then the fact, Reverend Al, that they have this video of an argument that is going on, and you know, thank God all young people, they have cell phones, and anytime you hear people raising their voice, they start the video. And so you hear on the video Nolan saying, "Give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing?"
Oh, wow.
And that becomes even more relevant when you think about the story that they are presenting, that Nolan chose to stay behind. That's what they're saying. But his phone, he wouldn't take that with him if he's going to stay behind on an island? I mean, we're talking about an 18-year-old kid. What teenager would leave their phone behind if they're going to stay on this island? What teenager wouldn't take their phone? And so it's not adding up. It's not adding up at all. The fact, as Reverend Al said, you know, they didn't take his phone with them. His mother, when she finds out that her baby is missing, they start trying to track the phone. The GPS the phone, they've used Life 360, and they discover that, well, the phone is on land. The phone is on land, but you're saying he went missing on the island. And so it's not adding up. And so they go get the phone. And you hear her tell herself, when her and her sister start going through his phone, Jared, they realize that there are deleted messages, so they're trying to figure out, well, why are there deleted messages on his phone? I mean, it becomes relevant when you start putting everything together where we can't just say, oh, there's no instance of foul play. We're going to get to the truth one way or the other. The fact that, and this really makes no sense to me, Reverend Al, this notion that, well, he drowned, y'all have, I'm sure, seen all the videos out there. I mean, if he's drowning, nobody sees him drown, nobody offers assistance, nobody tries to help him.
Nobody.
I mean, obviously, he stands out. He's, I think, the only black person I saw when I'm looking at the videos. And if you see him drowning, you mean nobody is going to try to help him? It's not adding up. It is not adding up. And that's why the family, at their behest, we had an independent autopsy being performed. And we thank Colin Kaepernick for helping to pay for that independent autopsy. And we thank Tyler Perry for helping to pay for the funeral, because as Reverend Al said, these were just regular parents going about their life. They weren't expecting any of this. And then we're having to try to hire all these experts to be able to go and see if they can retrieve deleted messages. We have to have experts. You'll hear from Attorney Park talk about, where the body was found when it was recovered, and how long it took to be recovered. We think all of those are relevant issues to trying to understand what really happened to Nolan Wells. And this independent autopsy is so very important, because we had his body flown from Mississippi to Washington, D.C., because his family wanted to make sure that they had a doctor who had no ties to Mississippi law enforcement to do an independent examination of their son's body. And we are hopeful to get that results in the very near future. We were hoping we would have had it today. However, as you all know, here in New York, they canceled all the flights yesterday, and so it took a long time for his body to get to the medical examiner's office in Washington, D.C. But rest assured, as soon as we get those results, we will make them known to you, because we believe transparency is very important. We want to lead by example. We want them to be transparent, and we want to be transparent. We know they conducted an autopsy. We are waiting on their results as well. The final thing I will say is this. If there are any people who are on that island, any young people who recorded videos, who witnessed things, who may have saw Nolan at any time on that island, please, please, please let us know. Please call beingcrump.com, call the 800 number, just any information. They are desperate. We're in a ferocious pursuit for the truth. And y'all, if it was your child, wouldn't you want everybody who knew something to let you all know? This is a hard one, Rhea, because it's so tragic on so many levels. Well, before we bring the parents up, why don't we have Attorney Lisa Park, who is helping head up the investigation with our office.
My name is Lisa Park. I'm the senior attorney for the Ben Crump Law Office in Atlanta. It is our honor to work with the family to try to find answers in this case. I think that most of you at this point are aware of Ben Crump Law and many of the cases that we represent in this country. Some of these cases you don't know anything about until we get involved and we shed some light and we explain to the media what has happened, and you all let America know what has happened. Sometimes cases come and you all already know about it. This is one of those cases. I saw this in the news before I got a call from Ben. This was already huge in social media, already out in general media. Why? Why? Because it doesn't take an attorney. It doesn't take a special investigator. It doesn't take someone with extreme training to know right off there's something wrong here. This is, as Ben has put it, not adding up. It is so obvious. There are so many people in this country that go missing, right? Everybody knows this. But this case has captured everybody's attention. Think about why. You know that something is not right. It doesn't take us. It doesn't take the Reverend Al Sharpton, Ben Crump, to tell you and then think, oh, now I know something's wrong. We know something is wrong. And for every single person that was in Horn Island, and we know there's about 200 people, there's a lot of people. And we know that Horn Island is a popular place during the holidays. It's a popular place on the weekends. You have to get there by boat. It's the only way to get there. You have to leave by boat. It's the only way to leave. So many people out there. If you are watching this, if you see this, and you are struggling about what to say or what to do, you know what the right thing to do is. Call Ben Crump Law. There's this thing called the internet. It's very easy to find that number. Call us. We have an entire call center. They're waiting to hear from you. If you didn't go to Horn Island, but you've heard something, because people are talking. They're talking with each other. They may not be calling the police. They may not be calling us. But you heard something. We need to know that. We need to know that. In America today, so many of us, we want to believe that the last several decades we've made so much progress in our race relations, don't we? We want to believe that. Whether you're black or you're white or you're Asian, that's what we want to believe. We wanted to believe that this past 4th of July when we celebrated 250 years, right? If you want to believe that, you've got to be part of the solution. You've got to be part of that. You have to make it happen. And if you have information, please call us. It is incredibly important. People out there, you have answers. You may not know exactly what your information means, but if you saw something, say something, please.
Anything else about the time? Okay. We're taking a question and answer.
All right, we're going to hear from the parents, and then we'll have Q&A And what I want is when we go to the media, identify yourself and your outlet so we know who is speaking. And let me say again that we're standing with this family till the very end and make sure we're dealing with justice. Let's first hear from the mother, Christine Wansley.
First of all, I want to say thank you, everyone, for being here.
Yes, Lord.
This is not how I wanted the world to meet my son, but here we are. So, as you know, I'm Christine Wells Wansley. I am Nolan Wells's mom. And Nolan is the kindest soul. He never met a stranger. He loved everybody. He didn't care if you were black, white, purple, green, looked like a marshmallow. Like, he just wanted everyone to be in peace with one another. He loved life, and God gave him this big heart, which always scared us. Me and his dad had conversations with him all the time, not just about the importance of understanding our history as Black people, but also the importance of how you have to move in certain spaces. And it's not us being, feeding into racism or the stereotypes that comes with that. Unfortunately, that is just a matter of fact. There have been many cases, many instances that shows it's unfortunately a pattern that he did not like. He did not like that there was so much division, and I think that's why God gave him us. He was really a peacemaker. He wanted, like I said, everyone to be included. He never wanted to leave anyone out. He just, even at a young age, I don't know, how old was he? No, not 18. When he was a baby, he did little dance. So his father and I were having a moment, and as couples do, and even in that moment, he runs in the room with his diaper on, of course, and he starts dancing. Because it was like he could feel the tension. He could feel that something wasn't right. So he was just a special kid. Like, he was a special kid, but again, just heart was so big. And we're gonna miss him dearly. But we are grateful, especially to our friend Tashima, who actually was one of the people who helped us that night. She went and picked up his cell phone from where it was, and then provided that to us, because we of course contacted authorities to figure out who to do the report with, whether it was the county or the city, which then turned into DMR, who I contacted immediately from there. And, but.
Tell them how you got the cell phone.
So our friend actually, when I called her, Nolan is best friends with her two sons, Jalen and Javon. When I called her, I said, Tashima, have you seen Nolan? He's missing. No one has seen him. No one has talked to him. The boys were actually with her sons. So they opened up their Snapchat, because a lot of the kids do have their locations where they're tracking one another. So one of the boys says, well, it's showing that, I can't exactly remember what his location was showing, but my Life 360 location was showing something completely different. It was actually showing that his phone was like he was on land. And so we ended up, she received the phone from that parent, and then we met up where his car was, which was at a separate location. There were issues obtaining the key, but even so, there was just a lot of...
Tell them about what happened with the keys.
So I'm gonna let my husband tell you about that, because he actually went up to the door to get the key, because at that point, I was just not in my right mind. This has just been an awful situation, just terrible.
Elmore Wansley, the father.
Okay, so the situation with the key. When we got to the house, a few of his friends, they were already there, and they were at the door in the house, asking questions. So when I walked up, they were getting, things were getting kind of intense. So I turned to them and told them, I need you guys to calm down. I don't do this to me right now. I need them to kind of trust me so they can give me something. So I was able to calm them down. So the guy, he's in one of the pictures, but he came out of the room, half asleep or whatever, I think Jack's or whatever. And I said, look, I'm Nolan's father. I'm here to get his keys so I can get his car. I said, his car was in New York. His car was parked in New York. So he was like, I don't know, man. Nolan's like my brother. I said, well, if Nolan was like your brother, would you please go in your room and see if you can find my son's keys so I can take his car home? He walks off, 2 or 3 minutes, come back. I can't find the keys. I said, okay, so
Are they gonna steal his car?
I get the boys and I move them out the house because I didn't want them to go into the house and start tearing up these people's houses, because then there would be a whole new situation. So we walk outside by the car. One of the guys that was in the house with us, he was on the phone with a girl, and the girl told him that Nolan's keys were on top of this Jack's guy's Xbox in the house, because apparently she was there with him earlier. So he goes back up to the door by himself, and 5 minutes later, the keys come out. So now I feel like you done lied to me. So now I'm really like in distress with you. But as far as the night goes, if I knew anyone who had a boat, I would have went out that night looking for my son. We tried, but I don't have friends with boats. But if I knew someone with one, I would have went out that night. And this so happened that his coach saw all the stuff on Facebook that next morning and called and contacted me like 5 in the morning, asked me did we want to go out. And I told him yes. So within an hour, he was at the dock. We met him, and we went out. We docked the boat, got out the boat, walked on the island, walked a pretty nice stretch, came back, got back on the boat, went around the island, looked, came back around, and where we went to, that's where apparently they say that his body floated up. I don't know a lot about water currents over there, but I would think that we would have saw his body. And on the trip there was a family that stayed a night on the island, like actually tented out on the island. So if he was left, he would have saw that family on the island, and there was 2 other boats docked, so he would have had help. So I don't know. I don't know. I think we stayed there for like an hour and a half. That's when Jackson County and the sheriff department showed up, and they were going to do their rounds. And I had a classmate of mine, him and his 2 boys, that came out and they searched, and then they got back in touch with me and said the Coast Guard had finally showed up in airplane. So
what is so critical, what Elmore is saying, is they went out on Sunday, and the tide, if it brought his body up, he went missing on July 4th, as they say. His body should have been there on July 5th. Why would it not appear to July 6th? And that's one of those things that's just not adding up. And the fact that if he stayed behind on the island, there were boats there, there were people, somebody had to see something. That's why it's not adding up. And that's what they're saying. It's just not adding up.
Yes. And if he was there 2 days, somebody on the island would be able to verify that. 2 days, and nobody's come forward and said, no, he was with us, or no, we saw him. It just does not make sense. Make it make sense.
Just one last thing. We want her to talk about the cell phone deleted messages. I'm sorry. I thought my voice was loud enough. One last thing. We want to have Christine talk about the cell phone from her perspective before they tell you who Nolan was, and then we'll take your questions.
So when we made it home, my sister and I actually went through Nolan's cell phone, particularly Snapchat, because that is so popular with the children. And when we opened it up, there was nothing. There were no saved pictures. There were no snaps from that day. And we did open it before the 24-hour expiration. So we found that very concerning, only because anyone who's ever been around Nolan will tell you at social gatherings, he's taking videos, he's taking pictures, he's even come up to me when I'm getting ready to go to bed, hey Ma, come on, take a picture of me. You know, like that was Nolan. So that's why we feel that things may have been deleted, was because of the fact that there was nothing in either one of his accounts. But I do want to say this. I would hope that any parent who, God forbid, would be in our situation, I would hope that you would do the same thing. I would hope that you would ask for any help, receive any help to get answers, because at the end of the day, that's all we want. We just want to know. We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come home. Like that's our biggest thing. And we are so grateful to everyone, family, friends, classmates, United Cajun Navy, everybody that's assisted us. We appreciate you. There's not enough thank yous that we could say or give to you, but I just, we just want to know. We want an honest, thorough investigation. That's all we're asking for. That's it.
Do you want to say about who Nolan was, and then talk about your
Nolan is a person with a big heart. He's loved by not just his family, but the community. He's a born people person. He really developed a bond with his baby brother, because both of them play the same position. So he was really understanding the business side of the sport, which is football, and understand that it's not just a game you playing. So the stuff that I was telling him, it was kind of starting to sink into him, and he was really getting more in depth into it. And I could see as he did that, his baby brother really started getting more into it as well, as far as being more focused, because he saw, well, if my big brother is about to go do this great thing, then I want to do this great thing, but I want to do it better. That's why that's what made them so like vinegar and oil. It was like they was always at each other, but they were the same. When I look at my youngest, I'll say Nolan, or when I look at Nolan, I'll say my youngest name. So they would train together. I would always say, hey, you did some push-ups, you the one ran some routes. And they know when I say that, next day they're out there running routes. Even my other son, he'll go out there, he doesn't play their position, but he will go out there and work and exercise and work out, because they were understanding what I was talking about. They were growing, they were becoming men. So this was his time. He would always talk to me. I would always give him my advice about stuff. I always try to tell him what to look for. And I was always telling him, I said, son, I'm giving you this advice and I'm telling you this stuff, but you're going to have to experience this. But when you experience it, it won't be foreign to you. You'll have some kind of idea of how to navigate through it. And I think me and his mother, I think we did a great job with that. That's why it's so hard for me to believe that he would choose to stay on the island. It just wasn't in his character. It wasn't his character. So Nolan is the funniest kid in our family. Speaking of the time she was talking about, yeah, we were having a kind of heated moment, and I don't know if you guys remember the little dance called Stanky Leg. I think my son created it because we were sitting in that closet looking and just like talking. He literally came to the closet door like and peeked around and stood in front of it and just started doing this little crazy dance. And I was like, we just bust out like whatever we was arguing about, we stopped laughing, then we called him to us and we just hugged and laughed and played. But then maybe 6 months later, the song did a hit. But we always said he created the Stanky Leg dance. But that's my greatest memory of my son.
What are you telling your other children about this?
My son Ethan, he's hurting. These are the ones these are the younger ones. He's like, Dad, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and I'm like, son, you gotta keep going, because he would want you to be better. His youngest brother Elmore, the one that really worked out with him, he was like, I'm hurting, Dad, but I said, Nolan wants you to be the best he can be. He would want you to outdo him. And whenever you feel like you're in a bind or having some kind of problem, call on your brother, talk to your brother. My twins, the loss of a younger sibling is hurting them. They have to figure out how to navigate through life without him. And my daughter Carly, with her being away, it's really hard for her because she's not around family now. So she's out on her own, doing life what life does. But she's doing it on her own, so she has to do this by herself. We're here, by phone, but we're not there in person. So she really has to draw on the people that's around her when she's not home. So all together, my family, this is gonna be our new norm. He was the jester in my court, and yeah, he will be missed greatly, not by us, but by the whole community.
We will announce the funeral services when it is finalized, and we'll be going to help I will officiate at the funeral in Mississippi. Again, we'll take your questions, but identify who you are, and please be respectful. The families in mourning, but because they want justice for their son, they came to New York to make this appeal. But let's not make this a circus. Yes.
Say that last question.
How do you know that it's Nolan saying he could be my phone and doing that video?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you are. The second one is other children who are saying it was Nolan. Yeah.
So the last time we spoke and saw Nolan was July the 3rd. He actually cooked dinner for me, actually for us, because I had gotten off work. It's been really busy, and so he cooked dinner. It was salmon. He baked it. So proud. And then after that, he was just like, "Hey, Mom, I'm about to go. I love you. gave us a hug, kiss, and he left. Which of course, you know, he knew we always looked at the Life 360. So there were times maybe he didn't call us to let us know when he made it, but we would see it. He would text at some point, but that was the last time we saw and spoke with him.
Sir.
Two questions. First, who is doing the independent autopsy in Washington, D.C.? And the second question is, as part of your independent investigation, have you planned to reach out to the other boys with and ask them to voluntarily speak to your investigation?
Dr. Roger Mitchell is doing the independent autopsy on behalf of Nolan Wells' family. And we understand that the young men have lawyers, so we will have to have their lawyers agree to let them speak to our investigators, and we have not attempted to talk to them as of yet. We have been attempting to talk to many of the students and people who are out there that we are aware of.
Okay. Right here.
Oh, okay. Justin Finch, Inside Edition, asking a question here. First, for the family, wondering if you recall from your friend what was said to her by the people who gave her Nolan's phone, and for Attorney Crump, wondering for you, at some point, will that phone be given to police for their investigation? They've expressed interest.
Yes.
So the exact wording of the exchange, it was through phone, because again, we were busy trying to figure out who was going to take the missing persons report. Just because when it's in water, when it occurs on the island, it's not necessarily the city or the county, because then it becomes an issue of jurisdiction. So like I said, she went there and spoke with, I cannot remember, I'm so sorry, my brain is everywhere. But she went to the house and retrieved the phone. She said, I have his phone, the phone was okay. As far as like appearance goes, it didn't look damaged or anything. And so then after that, we met with her at the other house where he had stayed the night, July the 3rd, where his car was. Because it was important for us to try to retrieve everything of his that we could. But it honestly, for both instances, it was a runaround, because I know she had issues getting his phone as well. And she ended up calling me, and I think I spoke with the mother. She put me on speakerphone, and I was like, hey, you know, yes, I'm Christine, I'm Nolan's mom. We need his phone, we're trying to find him.
Yes.
I guess.
Okay, we'll go her and then you.
I guess let me answer the second part of the question. Absolutely, after our experts be able to examine the phone, we will let the Mississippi investigators examine the phone. And it's fortuitous that they have the phone, because normally in these investigations, as you know, Reverend Al, they will have the phone and stuff, and they will keep it for months, and the family just be in limbo. But thank God we have the phone now. We're going to do it expeditiously and give it to them to examine it as well.
Anna Schechter with CBS News. So you said that he stayed the night at a friend's. The first question is, did he stay with the friends that he went on the boat with?
Yes, yes, he did.
And my second question is, has anyone come forward and provided you with other photographs or videos from Horn Island from July 4th that afternoon?
They're starting to send them to our office, and that's what Attorney Park was being so adamant about. Please continue to send whatever videos you got, whatever pictures you got, and we're very thankful that some young people have done that.
Good afternoon. Darla Miles, ABC 7 New York. First of all, I would like to extend my condolences to you, Mr. and Mrs. Walmsley. I know this is very brave of you, and we appreciate your transparency. Two questions, also my regards to you, Reverend Al, Mr. Crump. My first question is, this happened in Mississippi, and you've traveled here to meet with Reverend Al Sharpton. Why was this important to you, and how meaningful has this meeting been with you here in New York?
Talk to national meeting.
So we did this because, once again, what we're wanting is transparency, right? Although I do absolutely respect law enforcement, just the fact that the, accidental drowning thing, it made both me and his father uncomfortable. Why are we so quick to rush to this? And we just, at the end of the day, we want answers. This has been very impactful. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the day they found him, we were at Port Mars, which is one of the boat launches, and I was standing beside the water, and I had said a prayer, and I was like, Lord, this isn't what we wanted. But I just asked him to help us get through this, put the right people in our path that could potentially help us, because at that point, we hadn't reached out to anybody. We didn't know where to start. This is foreign. We've never been through this. No parent should go through this. And then that's when my cousin, Keezy, she sent me a message with some information. My friend, Bianca, her sister, knows a contact with Attorney Ben. And so I said, okay, this has to be it. This has to be God helping us along the way. And I am not religious, but I am spiritual. And for that, I was grateful because I felt like things were being set up. And at this point, I have always said, we are taking any help. Any help. We don't care, black, white, purple. Again, we just want to know what happened. That's all we want to know. We just want to know what happened.
And my quick follow-up to that, were you able to get a clear explanation as to the chain of custody of his phone, like how that parent came in possession of his phone? And then explain the resistance. You said you went to the home to get the keys. I don't understand, what kind of resistance? What was that exchange of words like? The resistance that you received when you went to go retrieve his keys. Thank you.
He just acted like he didn't know where they were. He just he was like he was clueless. He was like, I don't know. I don't well, just please, I was like, just please go in the room and look for me. Cause, be honest with you, at that time, I was very emotional. No one was giving me any answer. So that situation with me and them could have went totally left field. But since those other young kids were in there, at that moment, they kept me from doing what I wanted to do. So getting them and calming them down, it helped me focus on what I was really there for, to find the keys. And like I said, when I asked him, he said he went and looked. And so when he said he couldn't find them, I did what I needed. I left out of their home. And like I said, 5 minutes later, he come back out with the keys. And they didn't come back outside anymore until the police came. Because at that time, police were called because we were looking for his wallet. And then they went to the door. But other than that, when they sent the keys out, they locked everything. They didn't want nothing to do with what was outside that door. So that right there is, when you lied to me, it killed all trust in anything you had to say.
All right, I'm gonna take the last four. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The young lady who had
okay. Go ahead.
Maria Campanodi with CNN. 2 questions for Attorney Crump, just to get some clarification on the timeline of the events. When was Nolan last seen and by whom? And the second question is, who first reported Nolan missing and when?
Well, and I asked his mother to also assist on the second question. But as it's conflicts. The young woman say that he went and got back on the boat with the boys. The boys say no. He said he was going to stay with her.
The same boy who got his phone.
And that's a conflict. And the troubling thing is if they're saying, well, he made the decision to stay behind, would an 18-year-old college student say, go ahead without me. I don't want my cell phone or anything. It just doesn't add up. And so that,
And then when he go to
around
get the
that
keys,
3
they won't give
o'clock
it to him.
time seems to be the last time that we have those statements. However, as Christine said, they're suggesting that they didn't leave to 4:30 though. So, you know, if you said you were leaving at 3, why did you left at 4:30? And where was Nolan for that hour? And talking
Israel.
about, I think she was asking about the cell phone. What was your? Oh, I answered last scene. I thought you said something else.
I think authorities.
Oh, the missing. Okay.
So, his friend contacted me, it was around 11:07, and then I called my friend to ask her had she seen him, because that would be the only other place I would think he would go if he were back on land. And so then when she told me no, she was like, don't worry, I'm going to look for him, and that's when we got on the phone. First I called, it was either the county or Ocean Springs, it was either one of them, but whichever I called first, I was directed to call DMR, because so DMR, if I'm not mistaken, they handle cases with the island or the water in that area. So the young lady took the information down. She's like, I'm gonna give you a call back. I said, okay. So when she called me back, she explained to me, she was like, you know, I've spoken with the Coast Guard, which his friend had contacted the Coast Guard, Warren had contacted the Coast Guard to report
Janet,
Nolan
I don't know
missing as
how I
well.
accidentally
So I'm on the phone with the
deleted your
DMR,
comment.
he's calling
I
Coast
was in the
Guard.
bathtub.
And she said, I spoke with Coast Guard, and you know, you're gonna have to complete the report.
I don't know how that was
with,
deleted.
I think it was.
Okay, so for the guy to say, okay, so who did he ride with? He rode with a guy, a friend. So the friend left him. I mean, it's one thing to be catching a different boat, but it's another thing to leave the friend in whom you rode to the island with. Why would the guy who he rode to the island with, not check on him? Why did he leave without him? Because it's not about which boat he caught. If he gonna catch another boat, why you didn't wait for him? That's a problem. And which one of the kids didn't want to give the father his keys and his phone? Yeah. No, not adding
Ocean
up.
Springs. So we go down to the Ocean Springs Police Department. We're told because it's a jurisdiction issue, that they can't file the missing police report. Jackson County the Sheriff's Department ends up calling me back, I think if I remember this correctly, and she was calling to check to see were they able to do it. I told her no, they couldn't do it. The young lady on the phone and the officer at Ocean Springs Police Department spoke. He explained to her why Ocean Springs Police Department could not complete the missing persons report. She said, okay. He gives the phone back. She's like, look, I'm just going to go ahead and do it so there's no more back and forth. So my husband and I, we met an officer in the McDonald's parking lot. I think at this point it's maybe around 12. Don't quote me on that. But we explained to him, you know, what he looked like, age, all those things. Last time he was reported seen, which again, by his friend, he said that the last time he physically saw him was at 3 p.m. and they were getting ready to leave the island.
Israel Rodriguez with the U.S. Sun. Have you been able to gather additional information made by Warren's mother, Ashley Cole, on social media, where she said the group left the island after they experienced trouble with the boat and that the boat began taking in water?
And your question is what directly? We know she made that statement.
Have you been able to gather additional information on that?
No, we have not.
Thank you. Kevin Ortega Rojas with Here's Why News. I was hoping that the family could clarify Nolan's relationship with the young men that he traveled to the island with. We've heard different accounts of how long he's known them. And I was wondering also if you folks have spoken to those families since they lawyered up.
High school friends.
Is when we kind of
Yeah. Say that second part again. Have talked to the families. No. Last question. I haven't spoken to the family.
Thanks so much, Rev. I want to speak to the family. I stand here as a cousin, a first cousin of a victim. In 2020, he went out with his friend and the mother, who was white, and he went missing. He was found dead, deceased, in a field behind her house.
Oh.
She was arrested. She was charged with failing to report a missing child and contributing to the delinquent of a juvenile. So your story is very familiar. Your pain, I feel it. And I will continue to advocate. I'm an activist and I go all across the world. But today I'm here because I stand with you as a cousin of a victim. I know what you feel when you don't get justice and the system is up against you.
God bless you. Thank you. We will follow up and when we're ready to formal announcements. Again, the funeral service is not to prompt religion, it's to seek justice and unity. And we want everybody, black, white, everybody, to come and extol what this young man represented. It's not a protest rally. It will be to really lift up the spirit of this young man and to stand with the family. If we have to do protest rallies, that'll be announced at another time. But the funeral services is to talk about how Nolan was a great young man to his family, and we're there to comfort them. Thank you for your time. Let us, please.
I'm sorry. So I know I have been seeing some younger people, real adults, older people doing protests. We actually had a very small one in Ocean Springs. Some young boys that knew Nolan, actually some of his friends. So what Elmore and I would like to say is, if you do, please be peaceful.
Right.
Nolan was not someone who liked fights, physical fights. He really didn't even like arguments. So don't go out there trying to be tough. Just think about what Nolan would want. And I'm telling you, he would not want that type of behavior. So let's just make sure that we keep it peaceful and respectful to one another's and others, and just stay away from negativity, but also to all of those who have sent beautiful messages. We have not gone through all of them, but I want you to know that we appreciate you, your love, your support, standing with us, and just keep us in your prayers.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you, Rev.
Oh, wow. He was most definitely set up, in my opinion, and left. And then his merchandise was confiscated. What were they going to do with this phone? Act like it was left out there. Act like didn't nobody know where it was. It was still left on the boat. It was going to be a goose chase. That's what it was going to be, in my opinion. In my opinion. I wonder how they said that I deleted something when I wasn't even here. That's just in my opinion, y'all. What do I know? Let me see something. There was something about Karmelo.
You know, there's something happening right.
Let me get back over here. Maybe that's where it's at. Let me see something. Sad, sad, sad. Some of those kids need to go ahead and start the arresting, especially the one who had his property and lied about it. I thought I put one over here. For Karmelo, again, it sounds too familiar for me. It sounds too similar. White kids, black kid, one black kid, saying, give me my phone, and then he didn't want to give the phone to his dad. I mean, what is that? What is that? You didn't even want to give the phone to his dad? What is wrong with you? What is this no justice? When was this?
Change a country don't arrive with sirens blaring. They come quietly. A memo, an email, a Thursday. You know, most of the things that truly change a country don't arrive with sirens blaring. They come quietly. A memo, an email, a Thursday afternoon decision that most Americans won't hear about until the damage is already underway. Now look, I've been around this business a long time, long enough to know that when a president fires every single member of a bipartisan federal commission 4 months before a national election, that's not routine housekeeping. That's a signal. On July the 9th, 2026, President Trump terminated all 3 remaining commissioners of the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, the only federal agency whose sole job is helping states run fair, secure elections. 2 of them, Thomas Hicks and Benjamin Hovland, learned they were fired by email. 1 short paragraph.
You're fired.
Terminated, effective immediately.
Wow.
The Republican commissioner was allowed to resign. And just like that, no quorum, no leadership, no functioning agency. Now, I want to be fair here, and I want to be careful, because this isn't about party loyalty. This is about something deeper, something that every American, Republican or Democrat, ought to understand before November. And we'll come back to why the timing matters in a moment. But here's the honest truth. I sat in that Oval Office for 8 years. I know what it means to govern within the guardrails. And I know what it looks like when someone decides the guardrails are in the way. What happened this week deserves your attention, all of it. Now let me take you back for a moment, because you've got to understand the history to understand what was just taken away. In November of 2000, this country watched the state of Florida come apart over hanging chads and butterfly ballots. I just left office, and I'll tell you, that was not a partisan crisis. That was a systems failure. The machinery of American democracy had broken down in front of the whole world. So Congress did what Congress used to do.